Lesson submitted by Old Soul for the Meridian. Okay, you all, or enough of you anyway, asked for it, so here goes. Before I get into the first class session, I want to explain the format and schedule. First of all, I want to say that I will not be giving you any tests. This is not like any class you've attended before. The only one who will be giving you any tests will be yourself. This may take many forms, including, but not limited to, how you treat life around you and how it treats you back. Each lesson will be posted as a separate discussion, so that any who wish to may respond on those subjects covered in that lesson. Please confine any responses to its particular discussion line. Each lesson will be posted once a week. This will give everyone a chance to study the lesson, practice some of the exercises given, and respond with questions. Before I give you a schedule of the topics we will be covering, I want to share with you an allegory, which is a story with hidden symbolism, which I will explain. I've talked about this before, but not everyone may have read it. The spiritual path that humanity, and indeed all creation is on, is like a great mountain. Think of Mount Everest, for example. Now on this mountain, there are many paths, all of which lead to the top. Some are easy, winding back and forth, going slowly up the mountain. Most of humanity are on this path. Some paths are steep and rocky, with lots of loose stones and exposed roots sticking out. This is the path you are on. It is the fast track, if you will. It has a greater share of dangers than does the easy path, but the rewards are greater, since you will get to the top quicker. Once you reach the top, you may, if you desire, reach back and help others up as well. You can render this help at any point on the path, as well. During these classes there may be some references to various religions, but these are not religious classes. They are spiritual science classes. We will be uncovering the secret or hidden sciences that rise above mere religion, as most religions are faith and belief based. Once you have knowledge, belief becomes unnecessary. While I am, briefly, on the subject of religion, I want to say something about what I call brand X vs. brand Y religion. I was raised in a very strict Christian household. My father was a minister. He was taught, and believed until the day he died, that you had to belong to a particular religion or you were going straight to hell. I'm here to tell you, not so. God doesn't care what your religion is any more than he cares what color your skin is, or what kind of clothes you wear. What God cares about is how you treat yourself and everything else in his/her creation, how you love and respect it. All religions contain certain golden threads which will lead you to becoming one with God, which is the path you are now on. Having said all that, here is the list of classes and the order in which they will be given. 1. Your spiritual/psychic toolbox. 2. The laws of manifestation, old and new. 3. Auras and light bodies. 4. The astral and higher planes. 5. Healing and empathy. 6. Telepathy. 7. Psychometry. 8. Kinesis, all kinds. 9. Precognition and déjà vu. 10. Televisualization. 11. Dowsing. 12. The nature energies, the fairy kingdom, etc., and how we can work with them. 13. Ghosts and spirits, including guides, the ascended masters, etc. 14. Reincarnation. There may be more classes beyond that. I also want to add that I don't have a website, and I'm not selling any books or anything else through this course. I have nothing to gain except the joy of sharing my experiences and studies with you. I'm here simply because you have called me here. There is an old saying, be careful what you ask for, because you might get it. Lesson 1. Okay, let's get started. But before we begin, I want to say that there will be no tests in this class. The only tests will be the ones you give yourself. As each one of us are individuals, the tests we undergo, and our results, will vary from one individual to another. They will be tests of character, based on how you treat life and how life treats you. I also want to add that some of the things I will be covering in this and upcoming lessons will be things that I have posted before. There is a reason for this. Every week we get new members on the forum, and they might not have had a chance to read through all the postings. Some of the things I have posted before are also quite important, and need repeating. Let me also say that you might want to print these lessons, so you will have time to study them well, and perform some of the exercises, without tying up valuable online time. The topics covered in these lessons will by no means be complete. They are meant to be a starting point, not the definitive coverage of a topic. The spiritual path is a journey, one that you began many lifetimes ago. There are many more steps, more lessons to be mastered on your journey to co-creation with God. This first lesson, I like to call, your spiritual/psychic toolbox. There are a number of tools or techniques used in all psychic endeavors. Just like screwdrivers, hammers, and pliers, some are basic and are very useful in most situations. Others have more advanced uses, just like a power saw. Some of the basic psychic tools are concentration, contemplation, meditation, and visualization. Other tools are grounding, desire, intent, belief, gratitude, emotional control, and forgiveness. Forgiveness is probably the most important tool. Explanations and exercises. Concentration is one-pointedness, or focus that excludes external stimuli. Have you noticed that when you are reading a really good book, or watching one of your favorite shows on TV, that sound tends to fade away, that the light in the room seems dimmer, and when someone is speaking to you they have to speak several times, or even shout to get your attention? That is concentration. You can practice enhancing your concentration by staring at a candle flame without blinking or looking away. Start out trying it for a minute, and build up to 5 minutes. As you do this, notice how sounds become fainter, and how the light in the room dims down, even if the room is brightly lit, as your concentration deepens. Contemplation is deep thinking, studying something to find everything out about it, and analyzing it to see how it can be applied to your life. Strategizing is a form of contemplation. When your eyes grow tired from doing the concentration exercise, it is a good time to rest your eyes, and practice meditation. In meditation, there are two basic types, active meditation, and passive meditation. In passive meditation, you still the mind, think of nothingness. This is also known as Zen meditation. It can be achieved by long training and rigid discipline, but is difficult to master. Active meditation is much easier, as the mind loves to stay active. Basically, you give your mind a task to accomplish. This is done through the use of a mantra. A mantra can be any meaningful word or phrase. Some of these are the sacred names for God, words such as peace, love, Om, or even your own name. In the 1800s, Alfred, Lord Tennyson, one of England's most famous poets, wrote to a friend that he had a transcendental experience by simply repeating his own name over and over to himself. A useful mantra was written by the science fiction author Frank Herbert for his book and movie Dune, in which the main character repeats to himself when faced with a dangerous or painful situation, "I must not fear, for fear is the mind killer. I will release my fear. It will pass through me, and when it is gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain." Mantras increase our level of concentration, and aid to still our mind, by shutting out distractions. In order to keep track of the number of mantra repetitions they do, some people use a counting device such as a rosary or a mala. Yes, even Hail Marys and Our Fathers are forms of mantra. These counting devices allow them to keep track of their progress in the meditation without disturbing it by stopping to think of how many repetitions they have made. There is a simple method of counting that I was taught using the fingers of both of your hands. Using your thumb of one hand, touch it to the first jointed segment, or fingertip, of your index finger. That is a count of 1. By progressing to each jointed finger segment in turn, you can count up to 12 on one hand. Use the same method on the other hand, with each segment indicating the completion of one cycle of 12 on the first hand, you can count up to 144. You didn't know you could count so high using your 10 fingers, did you? In visualization, you use your imagination to see pictures. This is done using your third eye chakra. Briefly, chakras are whirlpools or vortexes of energy associated with some of the major glands or organs of your body. In the case of your third eye, it is the pituitary gland, located slightly above your eyes, between your eyebrows. We will talk more in depth about chakras in a later class. Imagination is a powerful tool. Everything that has ever been invented, was sown so by using the imagination. In medicine, it is used through the mechanism of the placebo. A placebo or sugar pill works because the doctor, an authority figure, tells the patient it will work, and the patient believes him or her. Another common use of visualization is daydreaming. I can remember, as a small child, that when things in class got really boring, I would stare out the window and dream that I was Superman, and could fly off and have thrilling adventures. This particular form of visualization is called mental projection, and we will talk about it later in class 4. The great inventor, Nikola Tesla, the father of AC electricity, radio, robotics, and so much more, used visualization to help with the creation of his inventions. He described one time how, when he was working on the synchronous AC motor, he had trained his mind in such a way that he could picture the machine in complete detail, set it in motion, mentally put it aside and come back to it later. He would then mentally dismantle the motor, and check where the wear points were. Later, when he physically built the motor and tested it, he found the wear points to be exactly where he found them in his mind. This is visualization in its highest form. I use visualization when I go to bed and I need to solve a problem of some invention I'm working on, by seeing it in every detail, down to the screws and nuts. I don't test the object mentally the way Tesla did, though. The more senses you can involve in a visualization, the more powerful it will become. If you can use your sense of taste, touch, smell, sound, and sight, your vision will become very real. Let's try a little experiment that will demonstrate this. Close your eyes and sit comfortably. In your mind, see yourself getting up, walking into the kitchen. See yourself picking up a lemon. Look at the brilliant yellow color of the skin. Looking closer, you notice the bumpy texture of the skin. Now, see yourself cutting open the lemon. Hold it up to your nose and smell it. Now bite into it. Did you notice how, physically, your mouth suddenly puckered up and began to water? Good. Grounding and centering are two more important tools. They allow you to drain off excess and negative energy, and to recharge your psychic batteries when you are tired. To ground, imagine golden roots growing out of your feet, like a tree, or alternately, see a golden rod extending out of the root or base chakra, located at the base of your spine. Imagine this rod extending down to the center of the earth. With practice, this visualization will only take a fraction of a second. Now see energy flowing down into the earth, and returning up your roots or rod into your body, cleansed and fresh. To center, imagine a golden sun in the middle of your chest. See yourself shrink down and go inside that sun. Here, you will feel safe and comforted. This will also be used later when we discuss the construction and use of shields. In manifestation, which we will talk about more in the next lesson, the basic tools are overwhelming desire, clear intent, and strong belief. Later, with practice, no leg will replace belief. A couple more important tools are gratitude and forgiveness. Being grateful for the things that manifest in your life, and indeed, that you have life at all, makes it easier for more things to manifest in your life. The ability to forgive, first yourself, and then everyone else, is probably the single most important thing you can ever do. It is the one thing that is able to change the negative karma that we create and experience, into positive karma. Anger, hatred, rage, and selfishness result in negative karmic lessons that we will have to learn to avoid. Love, compassion, selflessness, and forgiveness create positive karma which will counterbalance the negative karma. This leads into the subject of emotional control. Control over your emotions, so that you put out positive energies such as we just discussed, will make life much easier and your psychic development much faster, than if you put out negative energies and emotions. Negative emotions create energy blocks which cause feedback which will eventually lead to health problems, such as ulcers, heart problems, etc. Several times I have mentioned karma. For those of you not familiar with the concept, the law of karma, or as I like to call it, the law of responsibility, is a system that God created to teach us how to live life harmoniously. This karma can be summed up in the phrase, what goes around, comes around. Or put another way, what you put out, you get back. This can occur in the form of instant karma, or might come back to you in another lifetime. It may come back in the same form it was created, or a different one. In any case, it is always a lesson we need to learn. This completes the lesson for tonight. Blessings. Paul. Lesson 2. Tonight's lesson is titled, The Laws of Manifestation. The first thing I want to address is need versus greed. The universe is full of things and is willing to supply you with what you need. It will even supply you with some of your wants, depending on how hard you are willing to work for it. But the supply line is severed when greed enters the picture. When you become greedy, you willingly take for yourself things that someone else might need. You also block the flow of the things the universe wants to give you. Being able to recognize what and when the universe gives you is a different thing. The laws of manifestation have several underlying principles. These are, right identification, right imagination, right attunement, right action, and gratitude. There is an older and a newer set of laws that result in manifestation. The old laws. The old laws are: identify your need, visualize it, attune to it, take action, and be grateful. First, identify your need. Yes, we all need $1 million, but that is more of a greed for most people, not a need. You need certain things just to survive, and you want things that would make life more comfortable. These are good and admirable things. But do you really need that $1 million, and would it really make your life better? Ironically, a lot of people who have won big lottery jackpots suddenly find themselves unable to cope with money in large amounts. Friends and relatives, not to mention conmen and women, suddenly begin appearing, first asking, then demanding money. The winner's life quickly becomes miserable, and they wish life were simple again. Yes, there are some people who can handle large amounts of money, and use it to help others, but they are few and far between. Next, visualize what you need. Put yourself in the picture. If it is a new car, for example, for those of you who can drive, picture the new car, what kind it is, what color, what accessories you want. See yourself driving the car and enjoying the smell, sound, and feel of the car. Use all of your senses to see yourself involved with your need. Making a collage using pictures and drawings is a good way to focus your visualization. Put it in a place where you will be able to see it each day until your need manifests. Through your visualizations you become attuned to your need, and it will begin progressing toward you. Some people advocate attuning by visualizing it forming, starting on the atomic level, going up to the molecular level, seeing the etheric blueprint or pattern being filled in with the appropriate atoms. This is a quite advanced technique, and is unnecessary for manifestation. Richard Bach, in his book Illusions, covers the next point well. He wrote, "You are never given a desire without also being given the means to make it come true. You may have to work for it, however." This quote may not be exact, as I'm writing it from memory, but that is the spirit of it. There is another good quote from the Bible: God helps those who help themselves. What this means is that if you want something, don't just sit around waiting for it to drop out of the sky. This is simply laziness. If your desire is strong enough, you will be proactive, taking action that will eventually supply that need. When the universe sees that you are willing to put some effort in making your need manifest, it will cooperate and things will appear quicker and easier than you expected. The final factor is gratitude. If you give someone something they want, and they don't say thank you or in some other way express gratitude, you will think twice before giving them something again. This same principle applies to manifestation and the universe. Therefore, don't be reluctant or shy about saying thank you when something manifests for you. This applies to everything in your life. Express gratitude for the air you breathe, and the food you eat and everything else. This need not be done out loud, for God knows what is in your hearts and minds. Just express it to yourself, in your mind. These laws still work, but using them you limit the limitless abundance of God. What manifests may fulfill the need you expressed, but something even better could have manifested. To continue the example above, you may have manifested a Volkswagen, but a Cadillac, or Mercedes, could have equally manifested. To this end, the new laws of manifestation were given to mankind at Findhorn in 1971. The new laws of manifestation. Know that God knows better than you do what you need, and will provide them. Accept that your needs will be met. And be grateful that your needs are coming or have been met. Manifestation is tied into materialization. Here is an amusing story that happened to my wife and myself. When we were married, we went on our honeymoon to Sedona, Arizona, a place where a number of powerful energy vortexes come to the surface of the earth, and beyond. Many interesting things happened to us there, but the story I want to relate to you concerns the extra little trip some of our jewelry went on. All of these things really happened. During our honeymoon, we stayed at a number of different hotels, making a number of side trips. About midway through our stay, my wife discovered that a little black cloth bag containing 2 crystal pendants on chains that I had made for us had disappeared from her purse. We searched everywhere, going through her purse, our luggage, and our car several times without results. We called all of the places where we had stayed up to that point, again without results. We were heartbroken, as the necklaces held great sentimental value, not particularly much material value. We continued home without the jewelry, figuring that it was gone. A couple of weeks later, my wife was at her job, talking on the phone, when she looked down into her open purse and saw the bag. She finished her call, and picked up the bag and opened it. She poured the 2 necklaces into her hand, and the crystals nearly burned her hand. She then called me at my job to tell me that they were back. When we both got home that night, she showed me the bag, and when I dumped the contents into my hand, they were ice cold. What had happened was that the crystals had dematerialized in Sedona, and had rematerialized in Santa Cruz, California, where we lived at that time, a distance of several hundred miles. Several other similar incidences have happened to us. Another example of manifestation is this class. Although I had been downloading, printing, the information contained on the Wingmakers main site off and on for the past year, I hadn't paid any attention to this forum. Suddenly I was drawn to check it out, and found a number of you asking for a teacher to interact with you, even though the techniques were already given on the main site. This leads us directly to the next topic. Manifestation and the law of squares. The law of squares basically says that the more people involved in a manifestation with single purposeness, will make things appear quicker or more strongly. In the Bible, there is a quote, "Where 2 or more gather together, there am I in their midst." Someone else put it this way: God geometricizes. It works like this: 1x1 equals 1, 2x2 equals 4, 3x3 equals 9, and so on. Following this logic, you can see that if 5 people concentrate on manifesting something, it is as if 25 people were acting separately. Thus, a small, dedicated group of people can have a large outcome on any given situation. Some people call this magic. I say it is a science. The whole key to make this law work is that each person must agree on the exact picture of what is to manifest. Having a number of different visions create chaos, and no manifestation will occur. Lesson 3. Tonight's lesson is called, Auras and Light Bodies. Everything has an aura. This has been confirmed scientifically through the use of Kirlian photography. While the aura is not normally photographable, Kirlian photography puts extra electrical energy into an object, causing its aura to flare and expose photographic film. Sure, you think, it picks up stray electrons off of the electrical charge. Then how do you explain the fact that if you cut off part of a leaf, then take a Kirlian photograph of that leaf, the energy, aura, of a whole leaf appears on the film? This same experiment has been repeated many times by many researchers. Auras are real. This explains why an amputee can feel pain in a missing limb. Medical science calls this phantom pain. Auras have been found for everything, including inanimate objects such as coins. This is what the ancients called panspermia, the god in everything. What is the human aura? It is the energy your body creates, which changes as you think about different things. The Russians call this bioplasmic energy, the energy given off by living things. But as just mentioned, auras form around non-living things as well, at least non-living by our standards. I have heard of a special chemical dye that, when applied to glasses, filters out normal light, and allows one to see the aura without special training. I don't recall the name of the chemical right now, but I understand it is rare and expensive. Light bodies are a bit different from auras. People who are trained can see several of the light bodies in the aura, but not all of them are visible. These light bodies vary in frequency, and so can occupy the same space by multiplexing, just as a DSL or broadband computer connection uses 2 wires, and yet you can cruise the internet and talk on the phone at the same time. My wife and I use this technology in our store. The light bodies, in ascending order from the lowest frequency up, are the physical body, the etheric body, the astral body, the mental body, the paraconscious body, and the causal or causative body. Some of these have other names in different cultures. There are even higher frequency bodies mentioned in esoteric literature. The aura usually has a basic, or background color that changes little or not at all during an incarnation. Other colors change constantly, depending on what you are thinking about, your emotions, your health, and so on. If the physical body has an illness, this will be reflected in the aura even before it manifests physically. It will appear in the aura as a shadow, hole, or dark spot over the organ which is / will be affected. If you see auras well, you can aid healing by filling in these spots of energy. We will cover this in more detail in the lesson on healing. Seeing the aura. You can train your physical eyes to see auras. You can use your third eye chakra as well, keeping your physical eyes closed. To see with your physical eyes, you need to practice. Find a dimly lit place with a white or neutral colored background. It helps if there aren't too many distracting movements or objects in your peripheral vision as you look at the background color. Bring your hands up to a comfortable distance from your face, not too close nor too far away. Extend your forefingers and bring them together until they almost touch. Using a soft focus, or focusing slightly beyond your fingers, stare at your fingers. You may only see a faint light or bright colored band of light around your fingers, forming a bridge of light between your fingers. This band of light is your etheric aura, the layer that lies closest to your skin. As you continue to concentrate, you may begin to see colors extending beyond the first layer. This is the aura of the astral body. The more you perceive this, the easier it will become. You will also notice these auras around other people, animals, plants, and other objects. If you can, notice the auras as you look at people in profile. They will be strongest in this angle. Courting, making and removing. When two people share a strong emotional bond, they make a connection that allows them to communicate over a distance. This is a form of telepathy, in that they will be able to sense when some strong emotional impulse occurs. When this connection is made in the spirit of true love, it is a wonderful thing. Sometimes these attachments or cords of energy can have a less than beneficial effect. This is when energy drainage, or psychic vampirism occurs. These cords are sent out into the aura of the target, where they attach with what some psychics describe as hooks. These hooks prevent the cord from being dislodged from the target's aura. An excellent way to remove these cords from your aura is to imagine a large pair of shears, or scissors, cutting through the cords, with the cut ends springing back to where they came from. The hooks which were buried in your aura will wither and flake off, without the energy of the sender to maintain them. If you are in the presence of a psychic vampire, and begin to feel drained, do this exercise. If you watch the vampire when you do this, you'll see an almost immediate reaction. The vampire may jerk, or react in some other way. He or she may try to hook more cords into you, but if you continue to sever these, they will give up and move on to easier prey. An even more effective way to deal with a psychic vampire is to not allow them to cord you in the first place, by using shields. Shields can be constructed in a variety of ways. The basic method is to see a bubble of energy that surrounds your body, which becomes impenetrable, much like body armor. One way to do this is to see your aura turning into a one-way mirror, with the reflective surface on the outside. You will be able to see through your aura, but it will block any intruding energies. More techniques are shown on the Wingmakers main site. One extremely powerful shielding technique that is not listed there is called the ring pass knot. This was first mentioned, to my knowledge, in Alice A. Bailey's book Cosmic Fire. It blocks negative energy in its entirety, yet allows positive energy to pass through. To form the ring pass knot, you'll need to visualize two chakras which are outside your body. The first is called the Earth Star Chakra, and can be visualized as a ball of light about 6 to 8 inches below your feet. The second is called the Soul Star Chakra, and is a ball of energy about 6 to 8 inches above your head. Sorry, I'm not quite sure of the metric equivalent. They're about 13 millimeters to a half inch. Next, see a stream of white energy coming out of the Earth Star Chakra, spiraling upwards in tight wraps around your body and your aura, and continuing upward until it connects to the Soul Star Chakra. Then see the energy coming out of your Soul Star Chakra, spiraling down around your aura in tight wraps until it connects with the Earth Star Chakra. This forms a cocoon-like shape, much like a silkworm cocoon. I keep one around me all of the time. Several times I have mentioned chakras. Chakras are funnel-shaped vortexes of energy that connect to certain parts of the body. There are 7 major chakras within the body, and these are associated with major glands and organs which we will name shortly. Additionally, there are about 40 secondary, and many more minor chakras. In traditional literature, it mentions that there are a total of 88,000 chakras. These chakras form an electronic web or network that defines the energy meridians, the lines used in the practice of acupuncture. To see some excellent paintings which show these energy meridians, and how they relate to the skeletal and circulatory systems of the body, look up Alex Gray's work at www.alexgray.com. The major chakras and their locations are as follows: first chakra, root or base of spine, faces downward, exits the body between the anus and the penis or vagina. Color, red. Second chakra, the sacral chakra, associated with the ovaries and testes, faces forward, exits the body 2 to 3 inches below the navel. Color, orange. Third chakra, the solar plexus chakra, associated with the pancreas, liver, and stomach, faces forward, exits the body 2 to 3 inches above the navel. Color, yellow. Fourth chakra, the heart chakra, faces forward, exits the body between the breasts. Color, green/pink. 5th chakra, throat chakra, associated with the thyroid gland, faces forward, exits the body in the approximate area of or just below the Adam's apple, or larynx. Color, pale blue. 6th chakra, brow or third eye chakra, associated with the pituitary gland, faces forward, exits the body approximately 1 inch above the top of the nose between the eyebrows. Color, indigo. 7th chakra, crown chakra, associated with the pineal gland, faces upward, exits the body at the top of the skull at the soft spot, also known as the fontanelle. Color, violet. There are 3 energy channels or pathways which connect each of the chakras. They begin at the root chakra, and extend up to the crown chakra. In Sanskrit, they are called the Ida, the Pingala, and the Sushumna. The Sushumna goes straight up through the spine to the crown chakra, while the Ida and the Pingala wind back and forth, forming a spiral which goes around the chakras, with each of the paths on opposite sides of a given chakra. The Ida starts out of the root chakra on your left side, while the Pingala starts out on your right. As they go up to the 2nd chakra, they switch sides, then switch again at the 3rd chakra, and so on. The medical caduceus symbol represents this energy system. Interestingly enough, a man's root chakra rotates clockwise while a woman's rotates counterclockwise, and so on, alternating rotation direction as the chakras go upward. The Kundalini is energy that normally lies in a coil shape around the root chakra, hence the comparison to a serpent. When the Kundalini is raised naturally, it travels upward, popping gently through each chakra in turn, and bringing that chakra into full activity. If, on the other hand, the Kundalini is raised suddenly, before the person is prepared for it, it will rip, or explode, through the chakras, causing great damage, potentially driving the person insane, or worse. Perhaps you have heard of spontaneous human combustion, rare cases where a person's body bursts into flame, and is cremated almost instantly, leaving surrounding flammable materials with little or no damage. These are cases of uncontrolled Kundalini energy rising in an explosive manner. It is best if you can find someone who has experience with Kundalini in your local area, rather than trying to stimulate it yourself. Check with yoga instructors for a start. For a detailed personal description of raising the Kundalini and its dangers, read Gopi Krishna's book Kundalini, The Evolutionary Energy in Man. It has been requested that I add an aura cleansing experiment. There are any number of ways to do this, and I won't attempt to include them all. You can do a search on the net if you want to research it further. You might try this method. Imagine standing in a shower. Only this is not the usual kind of shower. Instead of water coming out of the shower head, liquid light will stream out of the shower head or faucet. On the wall of the shower, see a control knob with an indicator on it that points to a rainbow of colors on the wall behind the knob. The colors are not stacked one on top of the other like the rainbow, but are side by side, starting with infrared on the far left, going to red, then orange, etc. until you get to violet and ultraviolet on the right. Be sure to include the colors pink, gold, between orange and yellow, and white, but no black, brown, or gray. Now as you stand in the shower, turn the control knob to the color you desire, and the liquid light will stream down on you, and soak every part of you, just like water. When you are done, step out of the shower. It's finished. No need to mentally towel off, and it doesn't matter if you see yourself with clothes on or not. Lesson 4. Tonight's lesson is on the astral planes. The astral plane is a series of levels, or dimensions, which interpenetrate the physical plane. It contains lower levels which can only be described as hell, and high levels which are described as heaven. The Theosophists teach that there are 7 main levels with 7 sub-levels, with 7 sub-sub-levels, and so on. The astral plane has its own laws of physics, different from the physical plane. One of them is that form follows thought, i.e. that which you think of becomes real. On the astral planes you can fly, teleport, change size, shape, etc. as you desire. One fun thing to do is to jump off a cliff, because you will either float down, or bounce off the bottom unhurt. Don't try this on the physical plane, though. Gravity works differently there. You can travel to places on this planet, or even to other planets if you wish. When you travel upon the astral planes, you will do so on the level that matches your personal spiritual development, unless you choose to go to a lower level for some reason. Until you evolve sufficiently, you will not go to the higher planes. The lower planes are where entities such as demons dwell. If you are plagued with these sorts of beings constantly in your dreams, It is time to get to work to raise yourself to a higher plane, unless you enjoy interacting with such creatures. Due to their spiritual evolution, or lack of it, they are unable to raise themselves out of the pit or level in which they exist. You access the astral planes through the use of your astral body. The astral body, which I mentioned briefly last week, is a body comprised of matter that vibrates much faster than the physical body, and usually lies within the physical body through the multiplexing mechanism, which allows things of greatly different frequencies to occupy the same space. It contains links or connections to both higher and lower frequency bodies, including the soul and the physical body. It is the body that you usually use when you go out at night, having flying dreams, etc. Sometimes when you project astrally, you stay on the earth, physical, plane, but not always. When you stay on the earth plane, you will be able to see things in other locations that you would see if you were physically there. Sometimes you will see your physical body lying on the bed, and float up to the ceiling, or pass through walls, etc. When you want to, you can travel to other parts of the world by skimming, traveling over the landscape. I call this taking the scenic route. You can also get to a distant place by simply thinking about the place, which is targeting or attuning with the place, and you will instantly teleport there. You can project to any place on Earth, or visit other planets. Once, back in the late 1970s, I and a small group of friends projected to a spot on the moon, from where we could look down on the Earth. Normally, in NASA photos, you see the Earth as being somewhat overhead, but from our location near one of the polar regions, we looked down on the Earth. I still have the painting I made later to commemorate the event. I called it, the view from the high seat being the rock formation we stood on. It's possible to project much further than the moon. On the main site, you can print out pictures of stellar systems that you can use as a focusing feature. When you know where you are going, it is as easy as thinking about it to get there. I recommend that you practice in our solar system, before venturing outside. Always shield yourself before doing any projections. See last week's lesson, or the shielding methods given on the main Wingmakers site. There are a number of ways to leave the body astrally. One way is to imagine your consciousness pulling out of your legs and arms and torso, compressing or shrinking into a ball of energy inside your head. See it shrinking down into a sphere an inch or so in diameter, then shooting out of the top of your head. Once you are clear of the body, you can go anywhere you want. I, and many other people experience astral projecting by simply floating up from the body. When this happens, several common events occur. Some people feel a kind of sleep paralysis, or lethargy, before projection starts. This ensures that the physical body will be comfortable, and won't move suddenly, which will instantly end a projection. Next, most people feel a vibration that starts off softly, and gets stronger as the astral and the physical bodies separate. This is normal, and not to be afraid of. What is happening is that your physical and astral bodies go out of phase, the frequencies are no longer in synchronization, which sets up a feedback, felt as this vibration. Once the physical and astral bodies are separated, they are still connected by what has been described as the silver cord. Not everyone sees it. I haven't. It is connected to the two bodies in the area of the navel. It is a tube of energy that will stretch infinitely, and will never break until the event of your death. Some people claim that evil entities can attack this cord and sever it, but this is false. Only God can sever your silver cord, and will only do so upon your death, so don't worry about it. The transition vibrations will vary in intensity and duration, but are harmless. Once the astral body completes its separation, the vibrations will cease. The transition back into the body can be equally, if not more, startling. Normally, the astral body will come into alignment with the physical body, and will float down, completing the connections. But when something in either the physical or astral dimensions occurs that is startling, the silver cord will retract instantly like a stretched bungee cord, and you will experience a falling sensation, slamming into the physical body. This is a little painful, and your physical body may jerk from the force of the impact. If you wake up suddenly and feel a quivering in the area of the solar plexus, you have probably just returned. I must caution you against using astral projection for voyeurism. Projecting to another's bedroom without their permission is liable to gain you a psychic slap at the least, and a loss of friendship at the worst. So don't project to your girlfriend/boyfriend's bedroom unless they have agreed to it before your projection. There are many wonderful books that go much deeper into the subject of astral projection. An older, but great book was written by Yoram, published by Samuel Weiser, titled Practical Astral Projection, ISBN 0-87728-267-6. My copy was published in 1976 and was priced at USD $2.95. It is available on www.amazon.com for USD $15.37. It was republished in 2003. Mental projection is easier than astral projection. Mental projection is like, and maybe an aspect of, daydreaming, in that you see things much like watching a movie in your head. In astral projection, you have all the sensations of being there. Mental projection is as simple as thinking about a place, and you are there in your imagination. As with astral projection, you will want to find a quiet, comfortable place where you won't be disturbed. If you are dressed, it is best to loosen any tight clothing, belts, etc. Remove anything that makes a lump in your pockets that might make your physical body uncomfortable. You can lie down, or sit down. The key is to be as comfortable as possible. The next step is to decide where you want to go. One way to do this is to say it, aloud or to yourself, 3 times. This helps to focus the mind. Once that is done, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths, letting them out slowly. This will charge your body with oxygen and chi energy. Resume normal breathing after taking 3 or 4 deep breaths. Imagine getting up from where you are sitting or lying, then walking or traveling to your target. If it helps you to see yourself getting into a car and driving there, that is fine. When you get to your target, carefully look around, take note of what is going on, and then return to your body. When you open your eyes, note in a journal what you saw so you can later verify it for yourself. It is also important to write down your dreams in a journal. Dreams tend to slip away quickly upon waking, so keep the journal next to your bed along with a pen or pencil to jot them down fast. Some dreams will last in your memory for years. Most of these will be either lucid dreams or astral projections. Lucid dreams differ from ordinary dreams, in that you come to realize that you are dreaming, and can change it any way you want. There is one other topic I want to address in this lesson, and that is the creation and destruction of thought forms. In the astral planes, it is easy to create thought forms. As mentioned earlier, on the astral planes, form follows thought. What you think about becomes reality. This is true to a lesser degree on the physical plane. Alexandra David Neal, in her book, Magic and Mystery in Tibet, talks about thought forms, as well as many other kinds of unusual phenomena she experienced or observed in the 14 years she spent there at the beginning of the 20th century. She discovered that if you concentrate long and hard enough on something, you can make it manifest out of thin air. This can be a good or a bad thing. A thought form may take on phantom-like forms of men, deities, animals, inanimate objects, landscapes, and so forth. These phantoms, when charged with enough energy, can be as tangible as any physical object. They can take on a life of their own, if powerful enough. Most thought forms don't last long outside the aura of their creator, though. If you were persistent in concentrating on evil things and beings, you can create them in your life. Most people excel at creating illness in their own bodies, allowing their fears to cause great harm. It is far better to concentrate on creating good, positive things in your life. You are karmically responsible for what you create, so take care. Negative thought forms can be dissolved by reabsorbing their energy into yourself, an act that often creates a certain amount of pain. You have to see it coming back into your aura, and draining the thought form of its energy, as it shrivels up and dies. Lesson 5. Tonight's lesson is titled Healing and Empathy. Healing and empathy go hand in hand. Psychic/spiritual healing should be seen as an aid to allopathic medicine, not a replacement. There are times when healing works miracles when normal medical technology is unable to effect cures. There are also times when standard medical practices excel, such as when broken bones need to be brought into alignment. Healing complements medical practice, and every day more nurses are being trained in the laying on of hands, sending healing energy into patients, which has shown to accelerate the patient's recovery. These nurses are often natural empaths, or can be trained to be empathic. My dictionary defines empathy as the identification of oneself with another and the resulting capacity to feel or experience sensations, emotions, or thoughts similar to those being experienced by the other. This says it pretty well. Empaths tend to feel the pain of others when being told about that pain, or at the time the pain occurs, depending on the emotional attachment between the two people. This pain may be felt in the same place as that of the experiencer, patient, or it may be felt more symbolically, as a general pain. The greater the sensitivity of the empathy, the greater the pain will be. The important thing for empaths to remember is that the pain they experience is not theirs, but that of the patient. I hesitate to use the term patient, as most empaths are not qualified or licensed as medical doctors and therefore have to be careful in their approach to treatments. Unless properly licensed, a healer or empathy must refrain from dispensing or prescribing medicine of any kind. The healer or empathy can make statements such as, "If I were in your position, I would," or "When I feel this way, I." In this way you never tell someone what to do, you are only telling them what you would do. Remember these words well. How will you know if you are an empathy? The secret lies above. When someone tells you that he/she fell down, cut themselves, or stepped on something sharp, to name just a few situations, and you feel pain when they talk about it, but not before the discussion, you are an empathy. The perceived pain usually only lasts a few seconds, which is a natural safety mechanism to prevent the empathy from burning out. Sympathy is often confused with empathy. When one is sympathetic, that person expresses compassion and attempts to understand the stresses and pain of another. This is different than actually feeling the pain of others. There are many types of healing modalities. Indeed, you could easily fill a large library with books on this subject alone. Most of these involve energy transfer of some kind. I'm not referring to the use of drugs and herbs here, although they transfer energy as well. What I'm referring to is energy transfer of the mechanical and metaphysical kind, not chemical. Mechanical types of energy transfer include the use of magnets, and colored light, which is a subject I teach also. By metaphysical energy transfer, I'm referring to the practice of Reiki, cranial sacral massage therapy, hypnosis and suggestion, sand painting and other shamanic practices, laying on of hands, the use of mantras, we'll cover this later, acupuncture/acupressure, rolfing, reflexology, argon energy, pyramid energy, the use of chi, prana, and Hawaiian hunamana, to name a few. Strictly speaking, manipulation therapies such as massage, chiropractic manipulation, acupuncture/acupressure and reflexology fall under the mechanical category, although they do release and stimulate energy as well. How will you know if you are a healer? That's a difficult question to answer, as we each have such diverse talents. Some people, when running energy, will feel heat in their hands, and some will feel cold. These sensations are different than their normal feelings. Many also feel tingles in their arms and hands, some get chills running all over. These chills are similar to the truth chills. Hot hands result from an outflow of energy, while cold hands are from an inflow of energy. Both of these methods are valid, but have different uses. In the case of hot hands, energy flows out of the healer into the patient who is suffering from energy depletion. Remember the holes in the aura I spoke of earlier? This energy is used to fill up those holes, and to intensify the aura of the patient. If the patient is suffering from an excess of energy, the withdrawing of that energy through the use of the cold hands is appropriate. All metaphysical healing occurs first in the aura, and then manifests in the physical body. You can create either of these abilities through desire and intention, as well as visualization. It is important that in either case you use the grounding technique mentioned in Lesson 1. Failure to do so will result in the depletion or contamination of your own energy bodies. The hot hand technique may be done by first grounding, then visualizing energy flowing into your crown chakra and out of your hands. As this energy flows into your crown chakras, it will flow down through your THRDI, into your heart chakra, and on out into your hands, which will begin to tingle and grow warmer. If you don't feel this tingling and heat, you can jumpstart it by rubbing your palms briskly together. To activate the cold hand mode, let your hands hang down at your sides and imagine them sitting in buckets of ice water. Leave them there until you begin to feel the cold, tingling, or numbness. This causes some pain in my hands. Be sure you are well grounded, so that any energy you draw out will flow down the golden root of energy, down into the earth. Keep supportive golden energy flowing into your crown chakra to ensure your own energy doesn't flow away as well. Once you have achieved the appropriate energy in your hands, hold them over the afflicted part or organ, and feel the energy flow in or out of your hands into or out of the patient's body. There is no need to place the hands directly on the body, an inch or two away is sufficient. This technique works at a distance, as well. You can use a photo or even write the patient's name on a piece of paper. Hold your hands over the object, and visualize energy flowing out of you and into the patient, or vice versa. The ancients called this sympathetic magic. One person's magic is another's technology. A little bit ago I mentioned healing mantras. I covered this in a post, but I would like to include it here for those who may have missed it. When I burn myself, or am in great pain, there is a mantra I like to repeat, one that is infinitely adaptable for any given situation. I'll give the one on burns. Many times, as an electronic technician, I have dropped or splashed liquid solder on myself. This solder is over 400 degrees Fahrenheit when it lands. This should instantly create a second or third degree burn, but through the quick use of these mantras, only a first degree or lesser burn occurs. I do the mantras in repetitions of 3, a short cycle, in a cycle of 9 or 12, a long cycle. The mantra goes something like this: the burn stops now, the burn stops now, the burn stops now. This is the short cycle. I repeat this short cycle 9 or 12 times. After that is done, I switch to the burn is stopped, followed with the burn is gone. It is easy to lose track of the number of times you say each mantra, but there is a way of counting, using the segments of the fingers on your hands. You simply use your thumb to touch each of the segments of your fingers in turn. Thus, for one short cycle of 3, you touch first the tip of your forefinger, then the second, third, the tip of your second finger, a count of 4, and so on. On one hand you can count up to 12. Using that 12 count as one segment of your other hand, you can count up to 144. For an in-depth study of metaphysical healing, I strongly recommend Barbara Brennan's excellent book, Hands of Light, A Guide to Healing Through the Human Energy Field. The list price is USD $27.00, but is available through www.amazon.com for USD $17.34 new, and as low as USD $8.00 used. Now for a fun exercise, the creation of charged or holy water. Actually you can use other liquids as well. You will probably notice a change in flavor after charging. Set a cup or glass of water or other beverage on a table where you can sit comfortably. You might want to keep some in another container which you do not treat as a control sample for comparison. When ready, place your hands, not quite touching, around the test container, and begin to pour energy into it. If necessary, rub your hands together as mentioned earlier. Continue pouring energy into the liquid for 1 to 5 minutes, or until you intuitively know that it is enough. The time just mentioned is the minimum time you should do it, until you become so proficient at discharging or emitting energy that you can do it quickly. This liquid is now imbued, or filled, with healing energy, and may be ingested with medical benefits. Try both the test and the control sample, and note any differences in taste and texture of the two. I would like to point out that the laws of karma and free will apply to healing as well. Do not be disappointed if the healing you send out does not have the desired effect. The patient may have chosen his/her illness as a way to understand and to clear up karma from this or another life. Also, they may simply not permit the healing to take place for some reason. To violate this and to force healing on someone violates their sacred right to free will. The Rosicrucians teach that for a healing to be effective, the sufferer must ask for healing. You can offer your services, but unless the patient gives consent, don't bother to proceed. The law of squares mentioned in Lesson 2 also applies to healing. If you, and a group of like-minded healers agree to send healing energies, they will be much more effective and powerful than if you are working alone. The things covered in this lesson are only a beginning. There are many more techniques that you can research. Keep studying and practicing. Blessings. Lesson 6. Tonight's lesson is titled, Telepathy. My dictionary defines telepathy as the supposed communication of one mind with another by other than normal sensory means. This rather unkind and vague definition was written before 1975, when the book was published. Science has since begun to grasp the mechanism and reality of telepathy a little better. The famous experiments by Dr. J.B. Rhine at Duke University were the first American attempts to study this mechanism in modern times, although there had been various experiments before that. The Russians also had a number of successful experiments, and experimenters all over the world are working to understand telepathy today. Tonight, we will look at these and other experiments, as well as some of the experiences I have had. In the years 1934 to 1940, Dr. Rhine, who invented the term extrasensory perception, experimented with a number of his students. He found that telepathy is more successful if there is some kind of emotional bond between the participants, and that the use of symbols was easier to transmit than more complex concepts such as sentences. For this, he created a deck of cards comprised of 5 symbols, a star, a circle, a square, wavy lines, and a triangle. The sender would pick a card, concentrate on sending it, and then write down the symbol. The receiver would attempt to get the image, and would mark it down for later verification. There were varied levels of success, and it was discovered that when the participants and observers believed the outcome would be good, it was, and if someone was present that didn't believe in telepathy, the results would be inconclusive or negative. This brings us to the phenomenon of psychic positives and psychic negatives. A psychic positive is someone who has a strong belief system that psychic phenomena is possible. Most, if not all, of us here on this board fall into that category. Psychic negatives, on the other hand, have such a strong belief system that telepathy, and other psychic phenomena doesn't work, that they can actually dampen the abilities of others. Stage magician and professional debunker James Randi is an example of this type. The same phenomenon has been noted in other fields of science, where the belief system of the observer affects the outcome of the experiment, and therefore the scientists are careful to remain neutral, so as to not affect their experiments. Starting in the 1960s, scientists in what was then called the USSR began to study many kinds of psychic phenomena, including telepathy. Karl Nikolaev and Yuri Kamensky participated in a series of experiments that began in 1966. In Sheila Ostrander's and Lynn Schroeder's book Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain, Karl Nikolaev relates that he didn't have any unusual experiences or talents as a child. Rather, he chose to be telepathic, training with friends who would send him orders to do various things. It took time, but eventually he was able to pick up the thoughts of others, and to do what they wished. Eventually, an experiment with the two men above in different cities, Kamensky in Moscow, and Nikolaev in Leningrad, several hundred kilometers apart, was set up. The receiver, Nikolaev, was hooked up to an EEG machine, which measures brain waves. When the transmitter sent a message, it showed up in the receiver's brainwaves several seconds before Karl was able to talk about that he was seeing, and continued for several seconds after the transmission ended. Later, the two men were able to communicate from Moscow to Siberia. In each case, the information was received at the exact time as was transmitted. In both cases, the receiver had no idea what images were to be sent, nor when they would be sent. Currently, Rupert Sheldrake in England is conducting a number of experiments in telepathy, including one involving a woman and her pet parrot, Anjishi. The parrot was trained by its owner, and has a vocabulary of over 700 words. It can communicate in complete, independent sentences, meaning it doesn't just repeat what it hears, but can carry on conversations intelligently. In the experiment, the bird was kept in one room on one floor, and its owner in another room on another floor of the same building. The bird is videotaped, and compared with a video made of the sender. The experiment had two different results, depending on how it was scored. In the first instance, a very strict vocabulary of 19 words was used to measure hits, anything else was considered a miss. Since the parrot couldn't be told what words were acceptable, the researchers could only record the bird's conversations. Using this method of strict code words, the success rate was 23 hits out of 71 trials. Random words would have resulted in only 7.4 hits out of that number. Using a more liberal vocabulary, where the bird would mention characteristics of the target objects such as shape, color, etc., the success rate rose to 32 out of 71 trials. These experiments are ongoing. You can read more about them at Rupert Sheldrake's website at www.sheldrake.org. All of these experiments demonstrate that telepathy is a reality, and that it works best if two people are closely attuned to one another. Telepathy is a talent that can be learned through intention and practice. So far, I have neglected to relate any of my own experiences between my wife and myself. As I mentioned in one of my posts before the class lessons began, my wife and I share a strong psychic bond that goes back many lifetimes. It took us quite some time to relocate each other this lifetime, and when we began dating, we lived in cities about 25 miles apart. Once, my brother-in-law and I were in my car in the city I lived in, when suddenly we both noticed a strong smell of roses, the perfume that my wife-to-be wore at that time. It had not been there before, and only lasted about 10 minutes, before fading away. A couple of days later, she confirmed that she had been thinking about me at that time. In another incident which happened many years before, while I was in the US Air Force, I was returning from Thailand as a passenger on an Air Force plane. We were over the Pacific Ocean, between Thailand and Guam, our next stop, when the passenger compartment suddenly filled with a white fog. It was oil smoke, coming off of one of the plane's engines. It was so thick you couldn't even see 10 feet away. It was frightening, and when they pumped the smoke out, I remember hanging my head in relief. Later, my father, who was in California, told me that he suddenly heard me say, "I'm all right." He said it sounded like I was standing next to him and said it out loud. He had no idea why I would say that, until I told him later what had happened to me. Coming back to my wife and I, we frequently finish each other's sentences, say something just before the other one says it, or know what the other one wants using the barest of hand gestures. I've also had to tell her to quit reading my mind sometimes. In order to practice telepathy, you need a teammate. This can be a close friend or relative, or you can form up practice teams on the Wingmakers forum. The key element is that both of you must believe that the experiment will work. Whoever you ask to be your teammate, please don't ask me to participate, as I simply don't have the time to practice individually with 50 or more people. Instead, pick someone with whom you feel compatible. If you wish, we can set up a section of the forum for people looking for training partners. After you have formed a team, set up a compatible time for your practice sessions. If you are doing so over the internet, take into consideration the time zone each of you lives in. Although time and space is no barrier to telepathy, and it is possible to leave a message for someone either in the future or past, it is best to start out doing the exercises simultaneously. If you have been following and practicing the lessons so far, you should have some idea of being in a meditative state. Decide beforehand which one is going to be the sender, and which is to be the receiver. The sender should select an object or objects to telepathically send the receiver without telling him/her what it is beforehand. It's best in the early stages that the object not be too complicated. Choose a simple one at first. When the agreed upon time comes, both the sender and receiver should find a quiet space where they won't be disturbed. If you are the receiver, you can pretend to take a nap. Try not to fall asleep, though. Both the sender and receiver should prepare for the transmission by going into a meditative state. In science, this is known as the alpha state, when your brainwaves slow down to between 8 and 13 cycles per second. Normal analytical thinking occurs between 14 to 30 cycles per second. Once you are there, the sender can pick up the object he/she has selected for the test. While thinking of the receiver, look at the object, touch it, smell it, taste it if appropriate. This will get as many senses involved as possible. Note the weight, texture, color, and other characteristics of the object. After you have done this, be sure to write a good description of the object for comparison. After that is done, you may choose another object to send, if you wish. If you are the receiver, have something to write on, and write down your impressions so you can later give feedback to the sender. Don't be concerned if you don't get the full impression right away. It takes time really good at anything. Sometimes you will only get a partial impression. Let's say the object sent was an apple for instance. If the received impression was of something smooth, reddish, kind of round, then you had a successful transmission. As you get more proficient at describing single objects, try multiple objects. Or try to send a command to perform some task. Take turns being sender and receiver, so you can establish two-way communication. Who knows, if you get good enough, you won't even need a telephone to talk. As always, practice, practice, practice. And be patient. You didn't learn to read or write in one day, either. Lesson 7. Tonight's lesson is about psychometry, sometimes also spelled psychometry. The first spelling is correct. Psychometry is a method in which information is conferred from an inanimate object to a person by touch. This object can be anything from an ancient pottery shard to a favorite ring, to a picture of someone. These seemingly non-living objects have the capability of recording events and strong emotions around them. The longer an object is in the aura, or personal space, of someone, the more information it will store. Thus a recent photo of someone won't contain as much clairvoyantly accessible information as does a favorite piece of jewelry, for instance. There is little said about the practice of psychometry in the esoteric literature. Perhaps this is why it is little known. It has crept into the advertising world, though. For those of you in the US, you may recall seeing the car commercial in which a man drops an orange while admiring a shiny new car, and as he bends over to pick up the fruit, he places his hand on the car and instantly gets a vision of the car speeding through the countryside. This is an example of psychometry. I don't know if that commercial played in other countries. The term psychometry was actually coined in 1842 by an American physiologist named Joseph R. Buchanan. He claimed it could be used to measure the soul of all things. In one experiment he conducted at the Cincinnati Medical School, he found that some people, when handed an unmarked bottle of medicine, experienced the same effects as if they had ingested the medicine. This is different from psychosomatics, who have a reaction when told that the placebo, fake, they are swallowing is the real medicine. In the former case the energy, or vibrations, are picked up, while in the latter case the belief system is used. In practicing psychometry you use your abilities of clairvoyance, clear seeing, and clairaudience, clear hearing, to pick up impressions. There are times when clairsentience, clear feeling, also comes into play. In practice, psychometry will give you information much like watching a movie. After stilling your mind through a quick meditation, while holding an object in your hand or touching it to your third eye, you will begin to pick up information. This may come in the form of still or moving pictures, sounds, smells, feelings, or rarely, even tastes. What is occurring is a direct energy transfer to a part of your brain that is most sensitive to that particular form of energy. Few people taste the color red, for example, while seeing a bell being struck will trigger sound, the ringing, and the sensation or feeling of vibrations. Often the impressions you receive will be quick and fleeting, switching rapidly from one scene to another. It is important when you report these impressions to someone else, either verbally or by writing them down, that you set your personal biases and judgments aside and simply note what you see, etc. without analyzing. Otherwise, the information will become tainted and inaccurate. Psychometry is largely an intuitive science that is better experienced than taught. Many people seem to have this talent already within themselves, and only need to practice to make it work. It doesn't work for everyone, though, so if it doesn't work for you, it's just not one of your talents. Now it is time to practice psychometry. This exercise, like many others, will work best if the mind is at peace without too many distractions. Make sure any tight clothing is loosened and you are comfortable. A light meditative state is also helpful. The first thing to do is to select an object to read. This should be an object that belongs to someone else, as you already know your own history. This could be a pebble, a leaf, a ring, or anything else. Ancient artifacts are especially interesting. When I use the term read in this context, I'm referring to the act of psychometry. Sometimes this is also called scrying. Hold the object in your hand or press it lightly against your forehead, third eye chakra, if you prefer. Some people like to hold it in their non-dominant hand, the hand of receiving. In the left hand if you are right-handed or vice versa. Some prefer to lie down and place the object on their third eye. Clear your mind of thoughts by focusing on the target object. After a minute or two, impressions about the object and its surroundings will begin to flow. Let them come, and speak about them, if you are using a recorder, or write them down. Be sure to record things just as they appear to you, no matter how absurd, without adding any comments or analysis. When the flow of information stops, you are done. After you finish making your notes, give or tell them to the owner of the object for verification and feedback. Take your time while doing this exercise, there's no need to hurry. If you wish to read multiple objects, be sure to only read one at a time. As with any other psychic exercise, the more you practice psychometry, the better you will become. This ends tonight's lesson. Special thanks to Ellie Crystal of www.crystallinks.com for some of the information above. Lesson 8. Tonight's lesson is on kinesis. Because this is such a large topic, it will be divided into 2 sections, with the second section to be posted next week. Kinesis, in all of its forms, boils down to the creation of a large effect through the use of a small cause. Oftentimes this is called magic, or magic. There are many forms of kinesis, with many new forms being developed all the time. Some of these forms are telekinesis, psychokinesis, levitation, pyrokinesis, serokinesis, geokinesis, hydrokinesis, aerokinesis, electrokinesis, magnetokinesis, and chronokinesis. I will try to address each of these. One of the most sought-after talents on the Wingmakers forum is that of the construction and use of psi balls. We will discuss this, as well as the dangers inherent in their use, as well as safe uses. Connected with that, we will talk about the use of spiritual armor and psychic self-defense against attack. The basic meaning of the word kinesis is movement. In physics, the law of conservation of energy states that an object at rest tends to stay at rest, while an object in motion tends to stay in motion, unless acted upon by an external force. This is where kinesis steps in. We have already discussed in earlier lessons the law of form follows thought. The corollary to that is energy follows thought. When we practice kinesis, we give or direct energy to achieve a certain goal. Whether the desired result is to move a matchstick or a mountain, the process is the same, sending energy to perform a task. When we send out this energy, there are a number of underlying factors involved. First and foremost is the source of energy. Fundamentally, all energy comes from God, and focuses through us, much like light focusing through a magnifying lens. However, many people, including psychics, act like a battery, and send energy out to do healing, move objects, etc., without the concept of allowing the energy to simply flow through them from a higher source, thereby depleting themselves of energy. This use of self-stored energy is limited in quantity, thus limited results occur. By allowing the energy of God, the universe, the cosmos, or whatever you want to call it, to flow through you to do the desired work, the results are much greater. The second factor to consider is intent. Within intent lies motivation and justification. Tied very strongly to these is the law of karma. If intent, motivation, and justification is pure, the karma derived from your action will be good. If any of these things are tainted by selfishness, greed, or negativity, the karmic lesson will be painful. When we consider what our intent, etc., is, we have to take into account all those who will be affected by our actions. Now, you are probably asking yourself, what does this have to do with performing telekinesis? The simple answer is, everything. Sure, you can topple a tree, if you want to, for example. But what would the consequences be? If you were in the middle of the woods and needed some firewood and no one was around for the tree to fall upon, your desire might be fulfilled. But what of the birds and other animals who rely on that tree for food and shelter? What of the nature spirits you would displace? Knocking that tree down in this instance falls under the law of unintended consequences, which has a negative karmic impact, small but significant. Before we get into the description of various types of kinesis, I want to relate to you a story I read long ago about an Indian guru and his Kila, or student. It seems that there was this guru who had a student whose goal was to create hand fire, fire coming out of his hands, without burning himself. For years while studying meditation and other spiritual practices with his guru, he pestered the old man to teach him how to make hand fire. When the guru continued to refuse to do so, sensing his student's lack of karmic understanding and ethical maturity, the student in frustration told his teacher that he was going to leave him and find another teacher who would train him to make hand fire. The guru wisely gave him his blessing and the student went off in search of another teacher. 20 years passed, and the student triumphantly returned to his old teacher, proclaiming that he had searched for years and finally found someone who would teach him how to make hand fire, and proceeded to show it to his old guru. The guru, unimpressed, laughed, and said, "You fool, you wasted 20 years of your life to create fire, when you could have created it all along in 5 seconds with a match. You wasted both your time and money. You are the poorer man for it." Humbled, the once arrogant student walked away. What can we learn from the old guru and his student? It is far better to work with nature, than it is to force nature to work with us. That being said, we'll now move on to breaking down some of the types of kinesis, and some experiments in energy manipulation. Psychokinesis comes from the Greek word psyche, meaning mind, and kinesis, meaning to move. Thus, the practice of psychokinesis is to move things with your mind without touching them. Psychokinesis, PK, usually occurs near or around you, while telekinesis, TK, is the same phenomenon occurring at a distance. Tele Greek for far. Psychokinesis, PK, can also be used to reshape objects, such as spoon bending, etc. Uri Geller could also use PK to imprint images on previously unexposed film. This was before digital imaging. One explanation of how PK works that I found while researching this lesson is that you combine the use of chi, or universal energy, with physical, electromagnetic energy. There have been many scientific studies conducted that indicate that both PK and TK are realities. Some studies have been on the macro, or observable phenomena level, such as influencing a coin flip, or the fall of dice, while others are on the micro level, influencing atoms, electronic impulses from static, or random number generators. These studies have been, and are continuing to be conducted worldwide. There are several factors that inhibit successful PK and several that reinforce its success. Wishing an object will move doesn't work. Wishes are weak. Trying to think, to force an object to move likewise will be unsuccessful. Your analytical mind gets in the way, and fear and doubt creeps in. Being stressed, whether by physical, mental, or chemical means, will stop PK. Some chemicals that are inhibitive include, but are not limited to, alcohol, caffeine, sugar substitutes such as saccharin, etc., nicotine, and drugs, legal and illegal. Some people claim meat eating inhibits psychic activity, but this is not true for everyone. In certain survival situations, such as car wrecks, a certain need factor kicks in, and in spite of the stress of the moment, PK becomes possible, lifting the car off someone, for instance. To have a successful PK experience, you need to achieve a mental state of non-attachment to the results. When you attempt to analyze PK as it occurs, the mind shifts focus, and the PK event stops. To put it simply, don't think about it, just do it. Practice without preconceptions. Belief and faith in your abilities are key ingredients for PK. To put it in a simple, 3-step process, you need to, 1. Be accepting. Positive attitude and belief in your success is important. 2. Focus. Clear your mind of unwanted thoughts and keep your intent centered in your mind. 3. Let go and let God. This is the art of non-mindfulness. It's when you quit thinking about the outcome, that success occurs. You have to get out of your own way. Have you noticed how the practice of meditation and manifestation given in lessons 1 and 2 come into play here? Each of the lessons build one on top of the other, like steps on a ladder. Poltergeist, meaning noisy ghost, activity is a type of kinesis that often occurs when there is a young person going through puberty, in the house. I'm sure you are all familiar with the movie and phenomenon of poltergeist activity, but for those who do not know, it is a PK activity where suddenly things shift, fall, or sometimes fly across the room, when a teen is present. This normally lasts for only a short time, until the young person is able to get a handle on their rage, and the hormonal changes their body is going through. While strong at first, the incidents will become less and less as time passes. Poltergeist activity is uncontrolled release of energy. It is conscious control of PK and TK activity that is desirable. There are many exercises that you can use to develop your PK and TK abilities. Some use a safe, controlled release of energy, while others are much more hazardous. I will endeavor to give you methods, or experiments that will prove to you your abilities in PK and TK in a safe, non-destructive manner. We will discuss the dangers in PK further next week. The first experiment tonight is a variant of a pendulum. Basically, a pendulum is anything that can be hung from a cord or shaft in such a way that it can swing freely back and forth. The heavier the pendulum, the more difficult it is to move it, so we will stick to a needle hanging from a thread. Such a pendulum will swing from the slightest vibration or breath of air, so we need to isolate it from our environment to be certain that our mind is making it move, and not some breeze. To do this, find a jar or bottle that you can see through, that has a tight-fitting screw-on lid. Be sure you rinse and dry the container well. Pierce a small hole in the lid of the container. Thread the needle and tie a button, bead, or some other kind of stopper on the thread. Run the needle and thread through the hole in the lid, being sure the tip of the needle won't touch the bottom of the container when the lid is replaced. Once you have your pendulum in a bottle made, you are ready to begin the experiment. Put the bottle on a table or some place where you can sit comfortably next to it. Place your hands around the bottle without touching it. Now focus your attention on the pendulum, willing it to move. Remember to be non-attached to your results. If you try to force it to move with your mind, chances are that you will fail. If you have access to a laser pointer, you can make an interesting variation by tying or gluing a small mirror onto the cord, instead of the needle. A bright light will work as well, as the mirror will bounce the light onto a wall, where any deflection can be measured. You will need to wait until the mirror stops moving before you begin. Sometimes, holding or wearing a quartz crystal can serve to amplify your psychic energy. Another famous PK experiment is spoon bending. Whatever you do, before you do this experiment, don't choose the best spoon or fork in the drawer. Mom, or your wife, etc. won't like it if you go around turning the good silverware into pretzels. Find a spoon or fork that is old, not of value. A second-hand store is a good source for these. If you decide to bend a key, be sure it is not one that goes to a functioning lock, as they are difficult to bend back. Having acquired an appropriate utensil, clear your mind with a short meditation. When you feel relaxed and energized, pick up the spoon, or fork, etc., put it in your non-dominate hand, the one you don't write with, and begin stroking the handle with the thumb and first two fingers of your other hand. After a while, you may notice that the cool, slick metal has begun to warm up and become slightly sticky. The molecules of metal are beginning to vibrate faster, and the bonds between them are beginning to weaken. Continue to rub the handle. Soon the metal you are rubbing will begin to feel like putty, and the piece will begin to droop. Congratulations, you've had a PK experience. Another interesting experiment involves the deflection of a compass needle. For this experiment, use a cheap toy compass, as it may be permanently changed by the energy used to move it. Place the compass on a table and cup your hands around it. Without quite letting your fingertips touch, visualize a flow of energy moving either clockwise or counterclockwise. When the energy builds up to a high enough level, the compass needle will begin to move, swinging in the direction the energy is flowing. Once you can repeatedly move it in one direction, reverse the energy flow and move it in the other direction. A related experiment involves using a needle lying on a cork, floating on a bowl of water. First, cut the cork so that it is less than half an inch, 10 millimeters or so, thick, thin enough that the cork is wider than it is tall. Carefully cut a slit across the top and insert the needle into the cut, so that it points across the cork with one end of the needle sticking out of each side of the cork. Set the bowl 3/4 full of water in a place where no breeze can disturb the surface of the water. Carefully float the cork on the water and wait until the waves created settle down. Once the water is still, place your hands around the bowl and, being careful not to breathe on the water, visualize the energy flowing through your hands as mentioned in the compass experiment. There is a scientific instrument called a radiometer that has been around for many years to demonstrate that light has energy and can cause movement. It looks like a light bulb that is clear, with a needle sticking up inside and a glass cap or tube with 4 square vanes sticking out of it, sitting on top of the needle. One side of each of the vanes is silver, while the other side is black. This inexpensive instrument can be used to practice PK with. If you don't have access to one, you can make something similar. You will need a cork, a needle, a large mouth jar, and a square of paper about the width of the mouth of the jar. First, carefully insert the eye of the needle down into the small end of the cork, so that the point is sticking out an inch, 25 millimeters, or so. If you wish, glue the cork to the inside of the jar lid, being careful to center it. Double stick tape works well for this. Fold the square of paper diagonally, from corner to corner, twice, with both of the folds on the same side of the paper, so that it looks slightly like a tent or pyramid. Place the paper on the needle where the folds cross, being careful not to penetrate the paper. The object is to balance the paper so that there is as little friction as possible. Now place the jar upside down over the cork and paper and it is ready to use. The jar prevents air currents from interfering. Place your hands around the jar and move the energy as mentioned in the first experiment. Another, slightly more difficult experiment involves adding friction, while minimalizing the effects of gravity. The credit for this one goes to Rakanaza, who told me about his experiments. Take a bowl or aquarium filled with water, and allow a strip or square of paper to sink into it. Once the paper has sunk below the surface of the water, but before it hits the bottom, try to make it to move side to side, or to spin. This exercise will strengthen your PK abilities. Once you can make it move, the other experiments above should be a breeze. There are many more experiments that you can invent and try. If you find some that work well for you, post your setup and results on the Wingmakers board for everyone to try. Remember the 3 steps to successful PK. 1. Intent. 2. Focus. 3. Non-attachment. Blessings, Paul.